If you love drama, betrayal, and unexpected twists, you are in the right place. Go ahead, hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story. Have you ever wondered what dark secrets lurk behind the most perfect facades? What if the person you trust the most has spent months weaving an invisible web designed to utterly destroy everything you know? Imagine this. You are a titan of industry. Your name is synonymous with power and success. You have a dream life, an impeccable wife, and a secret mistress, an artist whom you believe you are protecting in the shadows. But one night, at the zenith of her artistic triumph, a car crashes into the scene. A black Rolls-Royce, your wife's car. And suddenly, the ground opens up beneath your feet. This is the story of how Duke Robert St. Cloud, a business colossus, watched his world crumble because he fatally underestimated the two women in his life. Robert St. Cloud, a man whose name resonated in boardrooms like a prayer, was a titan of the financial industry in vibrant New York City. And she, Isabel "Izzy" Soto, his secret muse, an artist whose talent he cultivated in the shadows, while his wife, Duchess Sofia de Montalvo, dominated the light of his public world. That night was Izzy's triumph. A New York gallery shining with her genius, financed by Robert's web of deception. While the city lights twinkled below, he reached out his hand toward Izzy, a fleeting, damning touch that promised a future he could not give her. But then, a soft purr tore through the New York night. A black car of an impossible elegance stopped at the curb, and Robert St. Cloud froze. It was his wife's Rolls-Royce. The St. Cloud penthouse on Park Avenue was not just a home. It was a statement. It was a testament to Robert's mastery in the world of high finance. A vast space of glass and steel that overlooked Central Park like a private royal balcony. Every surface gleamed, much like his wife, Sofia. Sofia de Montalvo was not simply a wife. She was a dynasty. The sole heiress to the Woodson shipping fortune, she had married Robert not for his money, but for the thrilling ambition she saw in his eyes. She moved through her gilded cage with a natural grace that belied a will of iron. For the outside world, they were the ultimate power couple. But inside the silent, air-conditioned perfection of their lives, the cracks had begun to form. Conversations had become scarce, replaced by the comfortable, yet dangerous silence of two people who no longer needed words to know what the other was thinking, or to conceal what they felt. Robert found himself suffocating in the predictability of it all. The charity galas, the summers in Martha's Vineyard, the polite cheek kisses that tasted of expensive perfume and unspoken obligations. He loved his wife, or at least he loved the idea of her. He admired her strength, her intellect, her unshakable composure. But he was no longer in love with the life they had built. It was a beautiful, flawless prison. And then, Isabel Soto walked into his office. She was not there seeking charity or an affair. She was an emerging artist, a painter with a portfolio full of raw, chaotic talent, and eyes that burned with a desperate need to be seen. Her art was stunning. It was vibrant and alive, full of messy, passionate brushstrokes that were the very antithesis of his own sterile existence. He rejected the mural proposal. It was too bold, too untamed for the corporate aesthetic. But he did not reject her. Instead, he offered something much more seductive: patronage. He created a grant through one of his lesser-known family foundations, the St. Cloud Fund for Emerging Artists. He gave her a private studio in a converted warehouse in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn. He paid for her materials and began visiting her under the pretense of mentorship. At first, it was innocent. He was captivated by her process, watching her for hours, sipping whiskey from a chipped mug while she worked. She spoke of color and light, of pain and passion, in a way that made his world of profit margins seem hollow. She was real. She had paint under her nails and sawdust in her hair. She was magnificently, wonderfully imperfect. And Robert, the man who had everything, found himself longing for the one thing he couldn't have, a life that felt as real as one of her paintings. Their conversation slowly drifted from art to life. He told her about the pressures of his world, the loneliness at the top. She told him about her struggles, her dreams of a solo exhibition. She became his confidant, his benefactor, his champion. And with every visit, the line between patron and something more began to blur. The affair began not with a sudden explosion of passion, but with a slow, inexorable inevitability. It happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Izzy was frustrated with a piece. "It's dead, Robert," she said, tossing the brush away. He approached the canvas, standing behind her. He could smell the turpentine on her clothes. "It's not dead," he said softly. "It's just waiting for a spark." He extended his hand, his fingers wrapping gently around her wrist. He didn't guide her hand to the canvas. Instead, he simply held it, his thumb stroking the delicate skin. The air crackled. She turned her head slowly, her large, expressive eyes searching his. In that moment, he was just a man hungry for a connection he couldn't find at home. He leaned in and kissed her, and the perfectly constructed world he had erected began to shake at its foundations. The golden key had a broken lock, and for the first time in years, Robert felt that he was flying. Do you think Robert was truly in love with Izzy, or just the idea of a real life she represented? Leave your opinion in the comments. The affair with Izzy became Robert's secret world, a vibrant, intoxicating escape from the monochromatic reality of his life with Sophia. Their clandestine meetings were the focal point of his weeks. He invented late-night board meetings, phantom business trips to Boston, and long networking dinners that were actually spent in Izzy's paint-smelling, chaotic studio. With Izzy, he felt seen. She wasn't impressed by his wealth. She was fascinated by his mind. She would sketch him as he talked, her charcoal pencil capturing a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes that no one else saw, least of all his wife. The physical aspect of their relationship was a revelation. Spontaneous, passionate, and deeply connected to the creative energy of her studio. But the secret was a constant, corrosive presence. Every phone vibration brought a chill of anxiety. He lived a double existence, a master of compartmentalization, weaving intricate webs of half-truths with an ease that frightened him. The guilt was a poison. He would look at Sophia across the table, impeccably elegant, and a wave of self-loathing would wash over him. She was his wife, the mother of his 2 grown children. She deserved better than this. Yet the moment he was away from her, the guilt receded, replaced by a feverish anticipation. He was an addict, and Izzy was his drug. The culmination of his patronage was Izzy's first solo exhibition. He had secured a prestigious gallery in the Upper East Side for her debut. The show, Urban Veins, was electric. Robert kept his distance, blending with the crowd, playing the role of an indifferent guest. He watched Izzy, a vision in a simple black dress, her face flushed with terror and euphoria. She was a star, and he had put her in the sky. He felt a possessive pride so intense it was almost painful. Later, when the crowd began to disperse, he found her in a quiet corner. "You did it, Izzy," his voice charged with emotion. "We did it, Robert. None of this would be here without you." The air between them was heavy with everything left unsaid. They were standing under a spotlight that illuminated the painting behind them, bathing them in a warm, intimate glow. He felt a reckless surge of emotion, a desperate need to claim the moment. He reached out and gently stroked her cheek. It was a profound and dangerous transgression. He leaned in, his lips inches from hers. The world faded, and then, through those large glass windows of the gallery, he saw it. It glided to the curb with the silent, predatory grace only a $250,000 vehicle could possess. A long, incredibly elegant, custom black Rolls-Royce Phantom. He knew only one person who owned a car like that, the car he had bought her for their last anniversary. His blood ran cold. The warmth of the moment vanished, replaced by an arctic terror. His hand, still on Izzy's cheek, seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. He couldn't move. He could only watch in abject horror as the rear door opened, and an elegant heel, encased in a Christian Louboutin shoe, stepped onto the pavement. His wife, Sofia de Montalvo, had arrived. What would you do in Robert's place at that instant? Try to flee or face the situation? Let me know your strategy in the comments. Time seemed to distort, stretching and compressing into the space of a single, horrified heartbeat. Robert's mind, usually a fortress of calculated decisions, was a whirlwind of pure panic. His hand remained on Izzy's face. Izzy, feeling the sudden, violent tension in his body, pulled back slightly. "Robert, what is it?" she whispered. He could not articulate words. He only stared out the window, his breath trapped in his throat. He retracted his hand from her face, as if her skin had turned to burning iron. Sophia emerged from the Rolls-Royce. She wore a tailored cream trench coat, looking less like she was attending an art opening and more like a general arriving to inspect a battlefield. Her face, even from that distance, was a mask of serene neutrality. She didn't look angry. She didn't look hurt. She looked determined, and that was infinitely more terrifying. She directed her gaze directly toward the gallery window, directly at them. She saw them. She saw him. She saw the way they were standing too close. His eyes, 2 chips of glacial ice, met his. "Robert, you're scaring me," Izzy insisted. She followed his terrified gaze and saw the woman on the sidewalk. She didn't know who it was, but she knew by the look on Robert's face that this was a catastrophe. "My God," Robert murmured, the words escaping his lips. He was trapped, completely and utterly trapped. Sophia pushed open the heavy glass door. The muted murmur of the remaining guests extinguished as heads turned. Her presence commanded attention. She glided through the room, her eyes scanning the space with a quiet, assessing air. She nodded courteously to the gallery owner, but her gaze swept past him and fixed again on Robert. She began to walk toward them. The soft click of her heels on the polished concrete floor resonated like a death knell in the silent room. With every step she took, Robert felt his universe crumbling. Izzy looked from Robert's ashen face to the approaching woman, and the realization began to dawn in her eyes, followed quickly by the shadow of betrayal. Before he could respond, Sophia was upon them. She stopped a few feet away, her expression still illegible. A slight, polite smile touched her lips, but did not reach her eyes. Those eyes were fixed on Izzy. "Remarkable," Sophia said, her voice soft as silk, but with a sharpened steel edge. She was speaking to Izzy. "A truly remarkable work. You must be Isabel Soto." Izzy was speechless. She could only nod. Sophia's gaze drifted to the large canvas behind them. This one, in particular. Grand Central. It captures the desperate, chaotic energy of people moving in different directions, all trapped under one roof. A powerful metaphor, don't you think? The words were a skillfully handled scalpel. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. She knew. Finally, she directed her attention to her husband. The polite smile remained, but her eyes were cold, hard, and utterly unforgiving. "Robert, darling," she said, her tone light and conversational, as if she had run into him by chance. "I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you had that late dinner with the Singapore investors." The lie hung between them, pathetic and transparent. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Sophia's gaze returned to Izzy, a blink so brief it was almost imperceptible. A flash of something. Was it pity? Contempt? It crossed her features. "You have a singular talent, Miss Soto," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, but resonating with perfect clarity. "My husband has always had a keen eye for raw potential." Then she turned her back on Izzy, ignoring her completely. Her attention was entirely on Robert now, her smile tightening a fraction. "My driver is waiting," she said, her voice an order disguised as a suggestion. "We have things to discuss, don't we?" Robert looked from his wife's implacable face to Izzy's, which was now a mask of confusion and dawning horror. The choice was not a choice at all. It was a subpoena. He gave Izzy one last, fleeting, silent apology before turning and following his wife toward the door, walking into the debris of his life. The click of Sophia's heels on the floor was the only sound, a steady, rhythmic march that led him out of his secret world and into the cold, relentless light of the truth. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories filled with unexpected twists like this one. The drive back to the Park Avenue penthouse unfolded in a silence so profound it was almost a physical force. Robert sat stiffly in the plush leather seat of the Rolls-Royce, Sophia's jasmine perfume now suffocating. He looked out the window at the blurred city lights, the vibrant world from which he had just been ripped, feeling like a prisoner on the way to his own execution. Sophia did not look at him. Her composure was the stillness of a decision already made. In the moment the elevator doors opened to their private foyer, Robert knew there was no escape. He followed Sophia into the spacious living room. She removed her trench coat, hanging it on a chair with a slow, fluid motion. She walked to the bar, her back to him. The clinking of ice against glass sounded abnormally loud. "Whiskey?" she asked, her voice flat. "Yes," he managed to croak. She poured 2 glasses, neat, and handed him one. His fingers brushed hers, and her skin was icy. He took a large drink, but it did nothing to calm the frantic hammering in his chest. Finally, she spoke. "Do you think I'm a fool, Robert?" The question, so direct, took him by surprise. "Sophia, He let out a short, sharp laugh, completely devoid of humor. "Explain it? Oh, I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things. The late nights, the weekend trips, the sudden, passionate interest in the downtown art scene. You've been explaining for 6 months. What I want to know is, did you really think I was so stupid, so complacent, that I wouldn't notice? 6 months!" The word struck him like a physical blow. She had known. "How? How did you know?" She took a delicate sip of her whiskey. "You're careless, Robert. You think you're smart, but you're a cliché. The second phone, the credit card, the statements from a downtown art store, the smell of turpentine on your jacket collar. It was pathetically easy. I hired a man, a very discreet and very expensive man named Thompson, to confirm it. He has been documenting your little mentorship program for the last 24 weeks. I have photos, timelines, receipts for every cheap Thai dinner you shared in her studio." She gestured vaguely to an elegant desk. "The full report is in the top drawer if you wish to review it. It is quite thorough." Robert felt dizzy. He had been living in a fool's paradise while she had been watching his every move, gathering evidence like a prosecutor building a case. "Why?" he whispered. "Why didn't you say anything?" This time her smile was genuine, but it was chilling and predatory. "Because, my dear husband, my anger was not the most important thing to consider. The St. Cloud Woodson assets are. Our holdings are intertwined in a very complex and very delicate web. A public, messy divorce would have been inconvenient. I needed time to protect what is mine. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. While you were playing the patron to your little artist, I was meeting with my lawyers, my financial advisors. My father's legacy, the Woodson fortune, is now completely isolated from yours. Untouchable. He looked at her, horrified, and against all odds, impressed. He had underestimated her so profoundly, it was almost ridiculous. And now what? His voice hollow. You divorce me. You take everything. Divorce is inevitable, she stated, but taking everything sounds so melodramatic. I simply need to secure what has always been mine. She turned from the window to face him, her eyes gleaming. You, on the other hand, have made a terrible mistake, not only in betraying me, but in who you chose to betray me with. What does Izzy have to do with this? He asked, a protective instinct igniting. Miss Soto is a nobody from Brooklyn, Sophia said, her voice dripping with casual disdain. She is a project, a charity case. And you, my husband, have tied your name to her. You funded her exhibition. You have been seen going in and out of her studio. Mr. Thompson was very thorough. You have made yourself vulnerable in a way I never would. She put her glass down with a decisive click. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., my lawyer, Martin Thorne, will file the papers. Your corporate accounts will be frozen, pending a forensic audit that I took the liberty of suggesting to the board, that there might be some financial irregularities regarding the Emerging Artists Fund. An anonymous tip, of course. Your personal assets will also be entangled. By tomorrow at noon, you won't be able to buy a cup of coffee without it being recorded and scrutinized. She walked toward the master bedroom. In the doorway, she paused and looked at him. Her face a mask of cold victory. You wanted a life that felt real, Robert. Passionate. Messy. Well, congratulations. You're about to get one. I hope it's everything you dreamed of. She disappeared into the bedroom, the door closing behind her with a soft, final click. Robert was left alone, the weight of his ruin crashing down on him. The following morning was a descent into the nightmare Robert had created. He woke up on the living room sofa, his mind a frantic mess of damage control scenarios. He tried to make a large transfer to a private account. Denied. He called his private banker. Robert, good morning, the banker said, his voice unusually strained. We've received a court order this morning. A temporary freeze on all your personal and corporate accounts pending a review. I'm afraid my hands are tied. Sophia was not bluffing. His phone rang. It was the chairman of his board. Robert, the chairman's voice was grim. I've just spoken with Sophia's legal team. They've made some very serious accusations. Embezzlement, misappropriation of corporate funds for personal use. They're talking about the Emerging Artists Fund. We've called a board meeting for this afternoon. Malversation. Sophia was systematically destroying his reputation. He called his lawyer, Roberto, but the response was not comforting. Robert, you have to understand that Sophia's legal team is led by Martin Thorne. He's not a divorce lawyer. He's a shark. This is a hostile takeover of your life. Then, he tried to call Izzy. Voicemail. A new, terrible thought. Had Sophia found her? He left the penthouse, his home now feeling like a foreign country, and took a cab downtown. When he arrived at the warehouse, the studio door was locked. He banged his fist against the cold metal. No response. He peered through the dirty window. The studio was dark. It seemed empty. A wave of dread washed over him. He was about to turn away when his phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. Meet me. The coffee shop on the corner of Lafayette and Prince Street. 15 minutes. Come alone. It had to be her. He walked to the designated coffee shop. He scanned the crowded room and saw her in a booth in the back, hunched over a cup of tea. She wore dark sunglasses and a hooded sweatshirt. He slid into the booth across from her. "Izzy, thank God. I've been trying to call you. Are you all right?" She didn't look up. "My life is over, Robert." "No, it's not," he said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. She flinched away. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice flat. "The gallery owner called me this morning. He's canceling the rest of the exhibition. Apparently, the anonymous benefactor has withdrawn all funds. My name is mud before it's even made. I'll fix it," he promised, his voice desperate. "This is just my wife. She's trying to hurt me through you. I'll give you money. We can leave." Money. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with a cold fury he had never seen. "Do you think this is about money? I trusted you. I thought you believed in me, in my art, but I was just a game for you, a way to feel young and important again. I was your raw potential." She spat out the words. "That's not true, Izzy. I love you." The words sounded hollow. She laughed bitterly. "Love? You don't know the first thing about it. You just use people. You used me as an escape, and your wife is using me to punish you. I'm just a pawn in your rich people's sick game. What do you want me to do?" he pleaded. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was firm, calculated. "You made me promises, Robert. You said you would help me build a career. You said you would take care of me. Well, the career is gone, so now you are going to take care of me." "I will," he said, relieved. "Whatever it takes." "It's not that simple," she said, pulling a small audio recorder from her pocket and placing it on the table between them. "For the last 4 months, I have recorded our conversations in the studio." Robert stared at the small black device as if it were a venomous snake. "Everything?" he whispered. "Everything," she confirmed. "You talking about your board members, your insider trading deals. You talking about how you move money to avoid taxes. You talking about your empty, miserable life with your wife. It's all there." This was the first twist, the first sign that Izzy was not the naive artist he had believed. She was a survivor. "What are you going to do with that?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "That depends on you," she said, her tone turning to steel. "Your wife may have frozen your accounts, but you are a resourceful man. You have money she doesn't know about. I want $5 million in an untraceable account by the end of the week. Otherwise, this little recorder, along with the transcript, will be sent to the New York Times, to the SEC. And, of course, a copy will be sent to Sophia's lawyer, Mr. Thorne." Robert looked at this woman. He saw a complete stranger. Izzy was a player, and he had just been double-crossed. Do you think Izzy was justified in her actions? Or was she as manipulative as Sophia? Comment your viewpoint. Izzy watched Robert's face crumple. A part of her felt a pang of regret, but it was quickly extinguished by cold, hard pragmatism. She was a girl from a working-class neighborhood of Queens, whose only assets were her talent and her wits. Robert and his wife had threatened to destroy the first. She would be forced to use the second. Robert's first instinct had not been to protect her, but to meekly follow his wife, abandoning her amidst the wreckage of her own debut. That single act had cauterized any love she had felt. The recordings had begun out of instinct, a flash of self-preservation. That night, she bought the small, discreet digital recorder. She told herself it was an insurance policy. She never thought she would have to use it. Standing back in her studio, She listened to the recordings. It was all there. Robert bragging about a Cayman Islands account. Robert mocking the chairman of his board. And the most incriminating parts. Robert detailing a scheme for short-selling a competitor's stock based on insider information. Her demand was expected. She knew Robert was cornered. $5 million was freedom. The third day, Robert contacted her. The instructions were cold and clinical. Zurich. Friday. Credit Suisse on Paradeplatz. Ask for Mr. Baumann. Use the key phrase, "The sparrows fly south in winter." He was complying. The relief was immense, followed by a chilling second thought. Was it a trap? She booked a one-way ticket to Zurich. As she packed, her eyes fell on the great unsold canvas of Grand Central. She took a box cutter and carefully sliced the canvas from its wooden stretcher. She rolled it up and slid it into a long cardboard tube. It was the only thing she wanted to take. It was a reminder of her talent and the price of trusting the wrong man. Her determination hardened. This was no longer just about money. It was about justice. Sophia thought she had won. But Izzy made one last decision. She made a copy of one specific recording, the one detailing the insider trading. She placed it in a padded envelope addressed not to the media, but to the SEC Enforcement Division in Washington, D.C. She wouldn't send it yet. Robert was giving her the money to buy her silence, but she had learned that true power resides in what you choose to withhold. The private banking floor of Credit Suisse in Zurich was a path of muted tones. Izzy spoke the ridiculous key phrase. The transaction was terrifyingly simple. Papers were signed, and an account with 5 million Swiss francs was opened. The transfer was complete. She felt the first true sense of freedom in months. She pulled out her burner phone and sent one last text to Robert's number. Done. As promised, the files are being deleted. Then she snapped the phone in half. She had no intention of deleting the files. Meanwhile, in New York, Robert St. Cloud was a man adrift. The board had forced him to take an indefinite leave. His friends and colleagues avoided his calls. He received Izzy's text with a bitter sense of relief. Now he only had to deal with Sophia's formidable legal machinery. The final confrontation arrived 1 week later in the sterile, glass-walled conference room of Martin Thorne's law firm. Robert sat opposite Sophia, who looked serene and powerful. "My client is prepared to offer a settlement," Thorne began. Robert's lawyer paled as he read the folder. "They're asking for the penthouse, the Hamptons estate, his stock portfolio, his voting shares." "I am not asking," Sophia corrected him. "I am taking what is necessary to secure my family's legacy from the taint of your client's indiscretions. You will be left with the Delaware Holding Company and the apartment in Miami. But your time in this city, at this level, is over." Robert felt a surge of defiant anger. "You can't do this, Sophia. I built that company," she countered, her voice dangerously quiet. "You were the architect, Robert, but I was the foundation. And a foundation can stand long after a faulty structure has been torn down." It was then that Thorne played Sophia's trump card. "Furthermore," Thorne continued, "in our analysis of the St. Cloud Fund for Emerging Artists, we uncovered something more troubling than mere infidelity. It appears your client was using the artist, Miss Soto, not just as a mistress, but as a mule, channeling money through her accounts that was likely tied to insider trading." Robert stared at him in shock. It was a brilliant, vicious lie. Sophia had found the records of his short sales and timed them with his payments to Izzy. "That's insane," Robert spluttered. "She had nothing to do with that." "Perhaps," Thorne said with a thin smile, "but a federal prosecutor might be very interested in exploring the connection. A messy SEC investigation, possible jail time, would be very unpleasant. Or you can sign the agreement." We walk away. Sophia gets what she's owed, and this unfortunate business with the tip to the SEC we were planning to give simply disappears. It was blackmail, pure and simple. He was trapped, defeated. He signed away his life's work. 3 months later, Sofia de Montalvo was on the cover of Forbes magazine, hailed as the shrewd CEO who had renamed the company Woodson Global Group and set it toward a more stable future. Robert lived in the Miami apartment, a shell of his former self. His name was a footnote. And in Florence, Italy, Izzy Soto rented a magnificent north-facing studio. She had mailed the envelope to the SEC the day the money cleared in Zurich. It was about closing a door. She unrolled the great canvas of Grand Central and stretched it over a new frame. She picked up a brush, dipped it in white paint, and began to paint over the entire canvas, erasing the past. It was time to create something new, something completely her own. The reckoning was over. Robert St. Cloud's brilliant world came down, not with a loud explosion, but with the discreet, deliberate clicks of a woman's heels on a marble floor. He thought he was in control, but he was merely a pawn in a game played by 2 women he fatally underestimated. Sophia, the wife he betrayed, proved to be a queen who had been planning her counter-move all along, while Izzy, the mistress he thought he could control, showed the world that survival is its own form of art. Their story is a chilling reminder that secrets are a currency, and the debt always comes due. In the end, everyone pays a price. What did you think of Sophia's final, devastating move? Was Izzy justified in her actions? What does the future hold for Robert? Leave me your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story of love, betrayal, and vengeance, please like the video, share it with a friend who loves drama, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story.